Welcome to Twin Spin, the show hosted by us, the Neo Twins. We've shared a birthday, childhood, and now a podcast together. We talk about the stuff that's hard to name but impossible to ignore. Growth, identity, creativity, and change. It's part catch-up, part soul-searching, and all about becoming who we're meant to be, all with a twist of twin. And we are so excited to have Julio G. Alvarez on the show today. So for those who may not know Julio, I'm going to read a little bio here that I have about him. So Julio is a trailblazing executive coach and keynote speaker dedicated to guiding leaders from their heads to their hearts. As a queer first-generation Latino, his experience as an ERG leader and marketing executive at top tech companies like Google, Airbnb, and Lyft fuels his passion for integrating intellect with empathy and leadership. Julio empowers high-performing leaders to develop self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and heart-centered leadership. His groundbreaking work, including founding Out in Tech, hosting the Let's Go with Julio podcast, and delivering the TEDx talk Technology of Courage, which is now becoming a book, is transforming how leaders connect and inspire. Featured in the New York Times and the Today Show, and trusted by visionaries like Sam Altman, Julio's dynamic approach challenges leaders to shed their armor, embrace vulnerability, and lead with compassion. Happy to have you.
Hello, Julio.
Yes, hello. I love that. That's fiery.
I'm going to say that
Welcome.
bio was
Hello.
just,
Yes.
oh my God.
Yes. A special shout out to Chicago Podcast Studio and the amazing work that they're doing with this new season of the podcast. But amidst all that you have here, Julio, the first time I ever saw you was not anything related to any of this, but a video on YouTube about, 6 or 7 years ago, where you were a best man at one of your friends' weddings. And I remember the main thing I remember in the title of the video was gay best friend. And I was in the midst of like my coming out journey still. And I was just like soaking up all the LGBTQ content I could. And I saw that. And that just stayed with me. And then last year, we were both in Orlando for an LGBTQ summit. And I see his face and I'm like, where have I seen that face before? That face looks so familiar to me.
Yeah.
And then I saw his badge that said Julio Alvarez. And I'm like, no, it's not the same guy. And then sure enough, I go up, I talk with him. And then I'm like, did you by chance do a best man wedding video that like got like more than 500,000 views on YouTube?
Yeah.
And then we just hit it off from there.
Oh, wow.
So
that's insane.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that was so beautiful. That was so beautiful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And for those who are wondering, what in the hell am I talking about? I will put a link in the show notes to the video. Definitely check it out. It's a really, really good speech. So
Yeah, it's really, really beautiful.
Yeah. But speaking of wonderful messages, you have two wonderful ideas of your own to share with us today. And so let's dive right in, shall we?
Let's do it.
So the first idea that you shared with us that changed your life is paying attention to your life is important because your life is always speaking to you. Could you give us a little bit more information on why that's one of your ideas?
Sure. First of all, I love that there's only two, that you focus our attention on two. I think that's beautiful because we could give millions, but it really forces you to prioritize what were the significant sort of life-changing moments. And actually, this lesson is related to the story you just told.
Oh, really?
Which is yes, it is, because your life is always speaking to you. This best man speech I gave for my best friend who I met in high school at a conference. You know how when you're in high school and you get these letters to go to a conference for a weekend, We met at this conference. We became friends. He was this straight white boy from Ohio, and I thought he was the cutest thing. I had a total crush on him. And we became best friends, but it was not like that romantic at all. He was not like that, but he was very accepting and welcoming. Anyway, fast forward, he's getting married. He's doing his, he invites me to do the best man speech, and I don't have it written until the night before. So I get there. I'm in New York. I fly to California. I get there. Everyone's asking me, oh, so how's your speech going? And I'm thinking, oh no, like I don't have it figured out. And then it just came from me. I got into this state of flow where it just came out the night before. I gave the speech. It was interesting at the time, but I don't really remember it. And then I decided, you know what, let me put it on YouTube. and just see what happens. I'm just going to call it what it is. I'm going to throw it on YouTube. I wasn't over obsessing about the links or the description or anything like this. I just put it on there, set it and forget it, let it go. And what do you know? 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, the thing starts to take off, and over 500,000 views. It was like, wow, this was a signal from the universe. It was a sign. I literally remember uploading it, being like, God, Lord, divine, universe, send me a message. Like, if I'm meant to be doing this kind of stuff, like, tell me, show me, do something here. And I surrendered it, put it out there, surrendered it, and then the numbers came in, and it brought me to my first real lesson, which is pay attention. Pay attention, because your life is always, I like to say, in all ways, speaking to you if you are willing to listen. And so that best man speech, and even seeing you in line at this conference where you call it, and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, this is yet another signal from life being like, yes, you're headed in the right direction, keep going. And that speech was a defining moment for me, because from that point on, I learned to cultivate the skill of paying attention to my life. And I now use what's coming from my life as guidance to move me in whatever direction I feel is needed to go to align to myself. So that story has influenced this very first lesson.
Oh, that's
I
amazing.
love that. Yeah, I love that so much. And I love that you speak about how life speaks to you, but I also would argue that, like, if you are willing to ask life sometimes can throw signals your way in just the craziest of manners. Adrian, you know the story.
Are we thinking about the same story?
We're thinking about the exact same story. So, Julio,
Tell me.
you don't know this story, but I currently work as a video producer for a production company here in Chicago. And the way that I ended up getting that job and deciding to take that job, so before I worked as a video producer, I worked in public relations. That's what I did for the first 2.5 years after college. But like, my heart and soul had always been in video production. And so I had this opportunity to take on a job in video production, but it was a leap into the unknown. I would be doing this, full time, and then imposter syndrome was getting in the way, and just all these things. Like, am I worthy of this opportunity? And I remember I had gotten the offer for the job, and I didn't know if I should take it. And I was sitting out on the balcony that Adrian and I have, and I was thinking, like, okay, life, if you're out there, please just give me some sort of sign that I'm meant to take this job. Like, it could be a pigeon shitting on me. I'm not picky. Like, anything
Yes.
will work. And I shit you not. After I thought, give me a sign, even though the sky was clear, it was a clear blue sky, it started raining out of nowhere, and this rainbow appeared in front of me, and then it became a double rainbow, and then it stopped raining.
Wow.
It's like it rained just enough for that to happen, and then the rain went away. I saw the double rainbow, and I'm like, all right, yeah, no, I mean, that doesn't get much more blunt than that.
Yeah.
And that's
beautiful.
Yeah, it was just crazy. Life was just speaking to me in the craziest of ways, in a way that I didn't even think was possible. It was just so wild.
And I love your addition there, which is it lacks accuracy to assume that you're going to sit around and life's just going to tell you what to do. There is also an additional element of asking, being curious and asking, and then creating the space and being willing to receive what comes, to be willing to put yourself out there and ask, and then get still and listen and pay attention to the message that comes. That really resonates. That's such a beautiful, beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like, I joke with Andrew all the time, like, that's how a double rainbow led to your first Emmy. And I keep saying it all the time, because like, like, imagine if you didn't just ask that question, if you didn't like listen to what the universe was telling you.
Yeah.
Imagine if you didn't take that leap of faith, how things would have been had you not done that. And during COVID as well, especially, like, it was such a transformative time for all of us.
Exactly. But yeah, just going off of your point, Julio, like, I agree so much. It's like, you have to be an active participant in life. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to take those chances, because that is how life ends up rewarding you taking those risks and putting yourself out there. Is, you know, if you just sit in your home, you know, just become a bit of a hermit and be like, life happened to me. It's like, it's not really gonna happen. You know, you have to be willing to put yourself into certain situations. And I feel like when you are willing to take those leaps and take those risks, then life kind of becomes your buddy. It's like, I got you,
Yes.
you know, like you took the leap. I
Yes.
got you from here.
Yes, and what I have learned by consciously taking that route is every single time I override that answer, that message, I always end up regretting it. So when I ask for a sign and it tells me one thing and I do another because my egoic mind wants to move me in another direction,
Yeah.
it never works out well. All of my best decisions have come through asking for the message, paying attention, receiving what comes, and then trusting and loving myself to move in the direction of that.
I love that. Loving yourself enough. That, I think that is such a beautifully like worded way. When you are taking those risks, you are loving yourself. You're loving yourself enough to trust that you know how to handle
right.
whatever comes your way.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I love
right.
that. I love that.
And I know I especially suffered a lack of that for a long time, because I didn't believe that I was even worthy of doing that, of achieving that for myself. And it took a lot of time to get to a place where I could even begin the process of doing that. And you know, therapy helps y'all. Therapy is great.
Amen.
So
Bold,
Yeah.
underline,
yes.
italicize,
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
that.
But I would also add surrounding yourself with people who see the greatness in you, even when you don't see it in yourself. You know, you've been especially a big part of that, Andrew. And I would add Julio as well to that. You know, ever since we met last year, we've had at least like once a month or every other month we got on a call and just talk about what's going on in our lives and what are some problems that we need some thoughts on or suggestions on how to go about tackling them. And so, you know, what's that quote that like you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with? And so if you're with people that can help lift you up, especially during those rough times, like that was a huge help to me in that process. And I think this is all acting as a nice segue to the second idea that you had, Julio, which was you are responsible for your life. And so I'm curious, what made you write that as your second idea?
Yeah, well, it's actually very related to this.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, it's a 1-2 punch. It's your life is speaking for you, but your life is always speaking to you, but you also have agency and you're responsible for your life. I think that is the number one lesson for people to take away in life if you are a human being on this earth trying to max out your humanity, is to recognize that you are responsible for your life. You're in charge, that you have agency and you get to decide what choices you want to make, what decisions you want to make. And what you see in a lot of the world is people who are resistant to taking that responsibility. One big obvious example of this is staying stuck in victim mode. It's much easier and safer to stay in victim mode than to say, what part of this am I willing to take responsibility for in my life?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, yeah, it is absolutely easy to stay in victim mode. But at the end of the day, like, you know, life is going to throw at you whatever it's going to throw at you, despite however much you plan or think something's going to go a certain way. Life is always unpredictable. I remember before COVID happened, Andrew, you and I were considering going to Austin, Texas, and not staying in Chicago.
Oh my gosh, I completely forgot
right.
that we were
Yeah.
considering a
Fun fact.
move to Austin at one point.
And then COVID happened and the world shut down, and we decided, of course, to stay here in Chicago. And I'm really happy that happened, because in the end, it got me a lot closer to the friends that I have, both since high school and also the friends I've made in the past 7 or so years since COVID. started, and even before COVID started, when I first came to Chicago, to continue to grow those friendships. And so when life throws you a pivot,
Yeah.
don't resist so much, because you never know if that pivot could be even better than what you were planning to do before.
Yes.
I don't, want people to think that it's like, oh, you can never feel bad for yourself. I think it's like, because that's something that I had to learn, that it's like, it's okay to, exist in like, kind of like that sucky state for a little bit, where
Absolutely.
it's just like, oh, like, if someone's like relative dies, it's not like, well, I get to see family. It's not like, don't try to make everything so positive. It's okay to accept that, there are some moments that are just not good and you really can't spin.
Yeah.
But I think there's a stark difference, to your point, Julio, about, existing in that state of like victimhood and staying in that and starting to use that to make excuses for everything else.
No, that's absolutely right. And that kind of victimhood metastasizes and it grows. And I think part of my inspiration of leaving a 15-year career in tech to now spending my full time coaching, training, teaching, motivating, inspiring the next generation of leaders is because this is the new normal. I mean, look at the TV, look at what's going on in the world, from climate and political tension and so on and so forth. We are entering a new world in the sense that the next 10 years will look unlike the last 100. And I know that specifically being friends with someone like Sam Altman, being able to have spent many years in tech companies where I was building autonomous vehicles. I helped deliver the first 100,000 autonomous vehicles on the Lyft platform, right? So thinking about how do we get a human safe requesting a ride with this hunk of metal on wheels coming to pick you up with no driver. 10 years ago, that was preposterous. Today, you can go on TikTok and find people snapping about it, all day long. So TikTok snapping about it. Yeah, you know what I mean. And so I think that I feel in the deepest part of my heart that now more than ever, we have to do our work. Leaders especially have to do their work. The world is desperate for brave new leaders who understand that it's not just about the head. Up until now, it's all been an intellectual task. Actually, pre-computers, it was a physical task, right? Leadership used to be about muscle. Most recently, it's been about head and intellectual tasks, your degrees, your certifications, how smart you are, how many books you've read, how much you know. That is going away in the sense that intelligence will now be commoditized, akin to electricity. You can access it. It'll be cheap, available. And just by the mere app in your phone, you'll be able to have an agent or an intern that has an IQ greater than Einstein. So in that world, then, heart becomes the most important. Your ability to feel, I like to say to my clients, to your point about staying in the feeling, feel all the feels and then take the wheel. To allow yourself to feel all of the feelings and allow them to move through you, right? Emotion is just energy and motion. You allow the feeling to move through you, and then you have to take the wheel again. If you do not take the wheel, you end up in a dead end somewhere. Like, you end up running out of gas. You end up in a car accident. Like, you end up in a place where you are not intended to be. And then you have to go all the way around and recalibrate that. So I love to tell clients, and even in sessions, I'll do this. All right, it sounds like there's a lot of energy around this. Why don't we time 5 minutes? And I just want you to give it to me. Just tell me everything that you're feeling about this situation, and let's release the energy of it. Because when you do that, you free up space to then move into a more productive place where you can choose to make decisions not from fear, but actually from the most loving place of your personality. And that's why paying attention, slowing down, and taking responsibility for your life, those two lessons come hand in hand. Because in order to pay attention, you have to be present and aware, which means you have to be in the moment. And then in that moment, you choose to take responsibility and make a decision with whatever it is that is bumping up against you in that moment. Most people get stuck resisting what is. They're fighting the present moment as opposed to saying, okay, I don't like this. I'm not happy with how this ended up, but this is what it is. Es lo que es. This is what it is. I have
Es
to
lo que
radically
es.
accept it.
Yeah, no, I
Exactamente.
love that. Also, I gotta know, stay in the fields and take the wheel. Did you come up with that, or did you find it from somewhere?
I read this. Where did I read this? I read this from a book called Dr. I have to get back to you on it. He's a doctor from Harvard, a research scientist about happiness. The Art of Happiness, the book is called, or something like this. Anyway, he talks about it in this book, this idea of feeling all the feels and taking the wheel.
Okay, I was gonna say I love that. That needs to be on a shirt. Like I'm just saying,
Yeah.
that is beautiful.
Yeah,
I
I
love
was gonna
that.
say like put that part of like the Let's Go with Julio stuff. If that was like from, I thought that was from him at first as well, and I was just like, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's so snappy. That's
Oh
so
my god! I
snappy.
was
Like,
gonna say,
Yes.
I was like, that is a merch opportunity if I've ever seen one.
Oh
Like,
my God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there was
totally.
so many great tidbits right there in what you just shared, Julio. But especially when you were talking about the power of being present, that really resonated with me a lot because I know, at least for myself, and likely a lot of others can relate to this, it is such a struggle to be present in a world that constantly tries to force you out of it, that constantly tries to push other things in your face, whether it's stuff that's coming up, stuff that was talked about yesterday, stuff that's being, just left and right on social media, YouTube, you name it.
Oh yeah, I
Like,
mean, you literally have apps that have algorithms designed to keep you
Yeah.
in the app.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, our time is literally trying to be monopolized, at this
Yeah.
point by these apps. So being present is
Yeah.
harder than ever now.
Yeah, yeah. And like one of the biggest
Yeah.
things for me to help with that has actually been meditation. Even though I know there are days where I'm like, I don't have the time for it. I don't feel like doing it. But I've practiced for about a solid year before getting to a point now where like halfway through the meditation, I can truly think of nothing. And when that happens, it is one of the most peaceful things I could ever experience in my day. And so I know for a lot of people it's hard to do meditation,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the more you stick with it, like hopefully, you'll experience the same thing that I do.
Yeah.
I just wish we could get
love-
back to being more present like that.
Yeah.
And I love that you went there because I also come up again. I work with high performing leaders in tech, right?
Right.
Very intellectual, very cerebral. The very classic. I don't have time to meditate,
Yep.
or I can't do that. I don't do that. And so what I would say is the way I phrase it is don't think of it as meditation. Think of it as the first lesson, paying attention. Meditation is just paying attention. It is just the observation of what is present before you and in front of you and around you and through you. It is simply paying attention and noticing what's going on. And then in that space, just being the observer. And the more that you do that, it is akin to building a muscle at the gym. The more that you learn to just pay attention and observe, the more you sort of build up this repository. You build this muscle such that when you bump up against challenges during the day, you can invoke that muscle and say, okay, responsibility, response. I love this. I think I got this from John Kabat-Zinn, who helped me learn how to meditate. Response able. You are able to respond. Responsible stands for response able, your ability to respond to the situation as opposed to reacting to the situation. Most of us react, meaning there's a stimulus and then we go into conditioned mode and we throw something out. All of us, everyone listening to this knows what it feels like to immediately reply to a Slack and then be like, shit, let me edit that. Or an email and be like, maybe I shouldn't have sent that, da 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 da. Or we say something out of line, we're reacting,
Yeah,
and we run
yeah,
around and
yeah.
spend our days reacting,
Yeah.
as opposed to, wait a minute, I am able to respond in this moment. Let me choose how to respond, and then at the end you get two options: love or fear, right? And it's like.
Yeah.
You want to go. You want to pull from the most loving part of your personality, and that is hard to do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, oh my God, that's so true. I mean, that could open up a whole other thing about like, my My therapist always says that it's like, people go to therapy to deal with the people who have not gone to therapy. It's
Yes.
like almost so
Yes.
like, and that's so true because I feel like, and this is speaking for myself as someone who has been in active therapy for, oh my gosh, over 3 years. It's like, you really do learn in therapy to like, just sit with the situation and process it a bit more thoroughly. I remember before I went to therapy, it was all just like knee jerk reaction. It was, I mean, it was my trauma essentially, like, speaking in the way that I respond to things. But it's like now, when you give yourself space to process and to think through situations that happen to you, it really does allow you to respond just a lot better to the situation, and also keeping in mind being respectful to those involved in it at the same time.
Yes. Yes. And to an earlier point, when you are too busy and you think you don't have time, that's when you need to do it the most. And you maybe that means you go to the bathroom and you do some breathing, or you go into a room and take some breath. You go for a quick 5-minute walk or something. You find some quiet time. But that little gap to just find some time, we as a human species now have the opportunity to learn this skill in a world where things are going to start moving around more quickly than ever before. I mean, we're already feeling that. That's not going to change in our lifetime. I mean, maybe 2050 it will change when we're in a Mecca where there's abundance and prosperity everywhere. But I believe these things will happen, but I think it will be hard. Things will get worse before they get what things may get worse before they get better. But that space is more important than ever before.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, along with meditation, one of the things that I also do now whenever I go out on walks is that I purposely take off my headphones and I just listen
Nice.
to the sounds around me. Listen to even like the loud car horn of a car passing by. Like, despite how it might be irritating to some people, like for me, it's just being present. Get out of being on Spotify all the time or listening to a YouTube video or a podcast. Like, be here now, because at the end of the day, this is all that we have that's guaranteed.
And just going back to the meditation point real quickly, because at least for me, meditation is a very, very hard thing to do. I know that you said that you can now like think of nothing, but for me, it's still very hard to even just get to a point where I'm just thinking of a few things, much less nothing. And so I was just curious, for you, Adrian and Julio, for anyone who wants to get started with meditation, but it doesn't know where to start, where would you guys recommend they begin?
So I would say YouTube, but with how much ads pop up. And before I got YouTube Premium, I had the free version of YouTube, and I'd be in the middle of a meditation, and then an ad would pop up, and I'd be taken out of it. So what I would say instead is use an app called Insight Timer. They have hundreds upon hundreds of free meditations, some that are 20 minutes long, others that are like 5 minutes long. And just start with like the smaller amounts of meditations. And then when you feel like you're ready, maybe make it 10 minutes. Then 15, then 20. And now I get to the point where I even have like a meditation that I do every night before I go to bed. And I just play it and I just be present. And more often than not, I never make it to the entire end because I'm always fast asleep by the time it's done.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love those suggestions. I would add 2 more. One is I use the bathtub now as a meditative space. I don't bring my phone, but we have like a one of those tubs where you can sit in. And it's funny, my husband is British, and it's very common in the UK. People sit in bathtubs. And when we first got together, I was always like, what are you doing in there? You're spending like an hour sitting in a bathtub? Like 5 minutes, put the lather on, get out, and get to work. We got vacuuming, we got cooking, we got shit to do. But now, I used to be in such judgment about that. But now I realize the preciousness of him using that time to just... So I often will use the bathtub now, and as a treat for me, that I get to go and just breathe and stretch and meditate. Another thing is that I like to make sure I do at least once a quarter is get in person in meditative spaces. There's probably, for anyone who's listening to this, there's probably a meditation center. There's probably a place nearby where you can take a class and do it with a group of people. You know, something low key. You know, I'm not saying go to a 7-day meditation retreat. Those are intense and by the way, transformative when you build up the capacity to get there. But try doing it with other people in your community is a beautiful, beautiful activity that I love. There are plenty of retreat centers and also local things where sometimes people do like IG lives where they do meditations, you know?
Yeah. But it sounds like your husband was onto something when he was in the bathtub for an hour at a time. Like before we all got into it, I guess he was onto it.
I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't blame you for having that responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, Latinos are like, you know, más rápido. Like you got, you know,
Ándale, you know,
like
get done.
water's money. Like, come on, let's go. Like,
Yes. Well, yes. Well,
Yeah.
and also I'm glad you went there because that's related to our inability to slow down, but the consistent work we're trying to do to get there, which is we come from families where it was always the hustle. I mean, my family, they were cleaning banks in the middle of the night. I remember like sitting in the chairs playing with the computers at the Chase Bank because while my mom and my aunt were vacuuming and mopping and cleaning, you know, like my dad was an engineer on the railroad. I remember just always at work. You know, came here from Ecuador when he was a teenager, met my mom in high school, had me at 19 with no money. So they were broke, just trying to figure it out in a very sort of white middle class neighborhood of New York. And there was always this pressure to push, not good enough, more, go. And while that propelled me into a rocket ship tech career where I became financially successful, et cetera, all the marks of success, I wound up in a place where the weight of all of that, I call it trauma armor, because that's what it is, right? We deal with these traumas and then we put armor on to self-protect from that. The weight of that trauma armor gets heavy. And then it slows us down. And then at some point, it gets to a point where it knocks us upside our head and says, you need to come off now because this is no longer helping you. And that's sort of what happened with me through my career. I mean, you know, those of you who have listened to the TED Talk know this story. But I got a job at Apple, Google, Tumblr, Airbnb, working with CEOs on incredibly huge products like iPad and Google Drive and Tumblr and Airbnb Plus. And then I also got fired from them because as you fly close to the sun and you get into the heat and the pressure is on when you're pre-IPO and you're growing really fast and there's competition and all of a sudden your armor defenses come on and you're ready to fight. You know, you're like the New York queer Latino in me is ready to, I told you 5 times, don't make me tell you again. Don't make me get out the chancla.
that chancla.
This is all hitting so close to home right now.
I was gonna say, oh my God,
Yeah.
memories just flooding back right now.
Yeah, just like that fiery passion, you know, just like, don't make me show that part of myself.
Pero
like,
me encanta. I love it. I love it.
Yes, don't make me.
Yeah. And I know you talk all about this in your TED Talk, the technology of courage. You talk about the very things that you're talking about now. And I would also suggest those who are watching or listening to the podcast right now, check it out. It's a really, really great TED Talk. I'll be sure to put it in the show notes. Cause like so much of what you're saying is resonating with me right now. I'm just really, really happy that you're sharing all of this, Julio. And as we wrap up, cause I know we can keep on talking forever. But as we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or word that you want to share with our listeners and viewers?
I would say, well, first of all, thank you both. This was a wonderful conversation. Time just flies. But I would say if you leave with nothing else, there's sort of 3 steps to unblocking yourself wherever you are in your life. The first is radically accepting the now. You have to be able to radically accept whatever the situation is so that you can pay attention to what's going on. The second is deciding to invest in your inner work. I do believe now more than ever before, doing the inner work is critical, whether that manifests as therapy, as group coaching, as yoga, whatever the modality is, because there's lots of modalities. There's not just one way in, but the call to courage now is for everyone to start to take the inner work seriously so that you can align yourself with joy, accomplishment, peace, abundance. That's so important. And then the third piece is, once you do that inner work, you'll know your values, and then your job is to live those values. To live the values, to be vulnerable, and to have a vision. It's values, vision, vulnerability. You got to have your values that you're living. You got to have a vision where you want to go, and you got to do it vulnerably, because you can't engineer vulnerability out of the system. That's my parting message to everybody.
I love that. I love that. And in addition to what Julio just shared with us, as a recap, the two ideas that Julio shared with us today. Number one, be sure to pay attention to your life, because your life is always speaking to you. And number two, you are responsible for your life. And if you would love to connect with Julio further, you can go to letsgowithjulio.com to learn more about Julio and work with him. And also go to Let's Go with Julio altogether across the social channels if you want regular inspiration on how to be a more effective leader.
Love it.
Julio, thank you so much for coming on the show today, friend. Appreciate you very much. And I'll be seeing you in about a few weeks' time, rather. Yes.
Yeah, and it was a pleasure to meet you, Julio. I know we've yet to meet in person, but I mean, it was such a pleasure.
I look forward to that.
Yeah, likewise.
We appreciate you so much for being here for this episode of Twin Spin. If something resonated with you, pass it along to someone else who might need it too. And if you're navigating something big in life right now, just know you're not alone. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next spin.